was going to ask you when you had the. I saw in the newsletter you can look at the YouTube at the past meetings. Is that a private? Is that public, or is that how's that work?
I have no idea. I'm not the one. Jim and Bill are the ones working on that.
Okay.
So, I mean, because I also looked and saw that it still had the Yahoo groups on there under links. So,
Hey guys.
Hey Tom.
morning, Tom.
Morning, Tom.
Yeah. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Oh, what's your
Rovia.
I'll drink to that. I'll drink to that.
Yeah, I'm kind of trying to figure out is get away through OBS to be able to put the videos to be able to play them into FaceTime, but or Zoom, but it doesn't appear. There's something I'm doing wrong because apparently it's not working the way it's supposed to. Because I tried to do this. And no playback.
Question, please, for Wayne, WV0KUG. Wayne, on the 2-meter digital, do you leave it on very often? Over?
On the digital side, so I usually on 2 meters, I usually monitor the analog side, and on the UHF, I usually monitor the digital side. But I had capability to go switching back and forth, whatever needs to be done.
Good morning. What's going on?
Morning.
Morning, Jim.
Good morning, Jim.
How y'all doing up there?
It's warming
Oh,
up.
we're warming up. Tropical heat wave up here.
Yeah,
20.
definitely a tropical heat wave.
We went out to State Park yesterday and walked around. We'll probably do that this afternoon again. Walk around State Park.
You made that up.
Well, we got our power back. We got our water back. The grocery stores are not stocked yet. And we have to boil our drinking water.
Well, not I talked to her. She's doing good.
What does it taste like after you boil it?
Oh,
Sort of flat.
Yeah.
Got a little lemon in it. We're supposed to
A
get
little-
above freezing today for the first time in a week, which is no big deal for you guys.
Yeah, did your pipes hold out in the because there was a lot of people that had their attic, they didn't realize they had water pipes running in the attic and had leaks.
Our neighbor has a hot water heater in her attic, and the pipes burst on that, so she had a flood.
Ugh.
The city water department, when the pumps shut off because they had no electricity and the water drained out of the supply tanks, then there was enough water left in the pipes to burst them. So it was kind of a mess. And of course, all the grocery stores, all the food in the freezers went bad when their power went off. So it's sort of a catch-22. And then of course there was ice on the road, so the trucks couldn't get in. So we didn't have gasoline or groceries. They're starting to come in today.
Good gravy.
So it's an example of preparedness running amok, which Mike
Yep.
I think could relate to.
Exactly. Well, it's about the par. And then they didn't, from what I understand in Texas, they didn't say do not go out and drive. So you always have those people that went out and drove anyways and got stuck.
That's right. I mean, same thing happens in the floods. People drive through the water here. So then the governor gets on TV and blames it on the windmills.
Good
I saw
gravy.
that.
Yeah, he blames the green energy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, which had nothing to do with it, but hey, you might as well get a political plug in while you can, right?
Well,
It's kind of a fire back at the green environmentalists too. So it's like, wow, just stop shooting lobs at each other.
It's
First,
interesting.
you know,
Better off. We're much better off than Austin. Austin doesn't have, well, there's still some power out, but their water system really went to hell. And so the guys that are only making out are the ones that have solar on their roofs. They're the only ones with power. And some of them actually have enough batteries to power their blower on their, gas. They have gas in Austin, natural gas. So on their gas furnaces. So, it was the only ones who really made out were the one with green power.
Yeah, don't you wish you would have stayed up here now?
Well, I called my neighbor at the lake there. I said, we're coming up. You got a spare bedroom? Actually, we came very close to bailing out and heading for Kansas City, but the problem is there was no gas between here and there. So that didn't work.
Started, the guy did his handwriting me this morning on Zoom on the computer.
So anyway, I'm sorry, I forgot that this started at 9 o'clock. I just got my wits about me here.
no, it's 10 o'clock is
Oh, was it 10? Okay.
Yep. Yep.
It's all
9
good.
o'clock is kind of when everybody shows up. Everybody shows up for an hour and chit chats.
Okay, well, we haven't reset all the clocks yet, so I have no idea what time it is. Oh, and then we
At
got
least
3 papers today on the driveway. We got Mondays, Wednesdays, and Friday papers.
so you can catch up on what the weather was doing, right?
You got to read them in the right order, though, or you get all confused.
Oh, I see. It's approaching 10 o'clock now, so I'll call the meeting to order. James, do you know everybody here today?
Well, their names are showing up on the thing. A few are just call signs, but I think I've met them.
Okay, so you know everybody here present today then?
I think I've seen you all before, yeah.
Okay.
Like your background picture.
Yeah.
It's actually my front yard.
Oh,
Looking towards the front door.
Okay. Here we had a chance to read the last month's minutes. Any comment, changes?
Oh, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as entered.
Second?
Second.
I'll second.
Okay, got motion and second. All approved, raise hands. So moved. Okay, that's the minutes, treasury report. I don't see. Oh yeah, treasury report. Eric. I called you a couple of times, emailed a couple of times, never got a hold of you. We never connected.
You emailed me?
Well, I texted you. I think.
Well, you did.
Yeah, texted you a couple of times. I called you a couple of times too. So you have a couple missed calls on your phone.
I'll bet you're the phone number that I don't recognize.
I left a message one time.
My phone hasn't told me that you've texted or left me a message.
It doesn't, huh?
I will look into it.
Okay. Anyway, so the treasurer stuff has not gotten to Eric yet, so I'll do the treasury report for you this month then. The same balance, no money in, no money out. Everything's the same, no expenses, no money in, so it's still the same balance, $2,357.18. Any comments or changes or corrections or anybody know of?
Make a motion.
Report.
Second,
Second.
TAF.
Okay, we've got a motion and second, all approved. Raise your hands. So moved. Okay, trust report. I don't see Jim here. Anybody have a trust report or a Jim report to anybody? Okay. As far as I know, the repeaters are all working good, all in good operations. Not heard any comment or anything from anybody. Let's see, what do we have next? New business, old business first. I'm gonna do old business for some reason. The bill KG0DX forwarded to me last month. He said he'd look into the shirts and sweaters stuff, all those logo stuff, you know. I guess the Bakken was bought up by Winning Edge. Winning Edge went through all the records they could, and they cannot find anything with our logo on it. So they said if we want something, we'll have to create a new one. So sometimes somebody wants to do that, we'll have to get a new logo created, and then we'll have to pay a fee for that, of course. Then we can get their shirts and caps and sweaters and all that stuff done then. So that's the Bill's report from last month. Anybody else have anything else then?
I guess maybe I'd like to bring up, since Bill isn't here, the Minnesota CUSO party.
Yep.
That is old business and it is over for the season. Got the email from Bill that looks like the club members who joined in on it did very, very well. There were a lot of stations on, and I only worked on 75, but I know some of you ended up working on 20 and 40. I don't believe that 15 was open or 10 was open, but a lot of stations out there, and good time had by all is what I'm thinking. The club did well as a overall score. Okay. About 160,000 points.
Yeah, I had a lot of noise that day. This last week has been normal, but for 3 weeks in a row, I had this buzzy sound, and every week it got worse and worse. The week before field day, my noise was S9 plus, and field day it was S9.
Mine would come and go.
I was competing against that, trying to listen to people.
When are the results of the council party going to be published?
Oh, you're talking probably 4 to 6 months.
Yeah, they're still tallying, and that you get a report. Did you get an email back of your submitted? You should have gotten an email back, and then when your name shows up on there, it shows that your report was good and all was no issues.
Yeah, I got an email that says that my log was accepted. I went over to the website and I saw my call sign there, so everything must be good.
Yep. Yeah, so it's just a matter of just waiting for everybody to get their stuff in, and then they tally it all up.
Yeah, I did a paper log, so mine's going to take a little longer to get an email back. Okay. I did have a question, Mike, about the Google Groups. I went logged into that site you said, but the password and stuff, how does that work? And could you explain a little more about that?
It's not Google Groups. So if you were going to Google Groups, you're in the wrong spot.
Okay.
It's groups.io. And you should, with that link that you got, you should be able to click on that link with the invite, and I can send the invite out again. And then you should be able to go in. You will have to create an account. It doesn't cost anything, but then when you get in there, just make sure that you use the email that you send out. Email out of your email application, and prime example is if you go and use like Bill went and used KG0DX at arrl.net, but his email goes out of his email client as KG0DX at yahoo.com, it will not let you in or submit anything. So you'll have to make sure that when you set up an account, you set it up with the your email account, and then from there you just create a login, and that just keeps people from actually being you when you go in there. So
Mike, did you turn recorder on?
yes, I did.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, please, could you please send that out again?
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, because right now we're up to 11 people signed up on it out of the 23 that I sent in. So the numbers are growing. But if apparently Bill went out and I'm just going in there checking right now to see, but Bill had to go back in, delete his account and recreate it. So just a kind of a heads up. And there have been a few messages already sent out on it.
I have not.
11.
Go ahead.
KUG, you're signed up.
I didn't create a password or anything. I just clicked on the link.
You just clicked on the link. Okay, so it created an account for you.
Okay.
So yeah, you're in there. EBZ's in there. Keith is in there. There's a couple that didn't update their profile name, but I see Jim, you're in there. Roger's in there. Andy, Tom.
I
Bill.
don't have any audio.
We can hear you, Norm.
Yeah, we can hear you, Norm. Maybe your speakers are turned down. But anyways, yeah, I'll send that out again because it'd be nice to get more people into it. So I will send out to the group as soon as I grab the list again, and I will send it out. So many of you have already signed in and got in. You're all set. I think Eric, you're probably in there. It just doesn't show. You might be one of the emails, I'm assuming, that doesn't have a profile name on it.
It could be. I did sign up, but I did it at work quick, and I'm not supposed to be on the internet.
What?
Yeah.
Okay. So anyways, yeah. So it doesn't cost anything. And right now, we're good up to 100 users, and for actually just using this as a reflector. So we don't have to pay anything.
I'm not
Plus,
seeing,
we're grandfathered in.
I'm not seeing the group actually. What's the name of the group?
W0ALX.
W0ALX. Okay, let me see if I can find it. Still not seeing it for some reason. Is it not publicly listed or something?
It is not necessarily publicly listed. Let me double check to make sure, because I think it's I gotta just double check the settings because I can't remember. Okay, so the group is not visible in the list, but is publicly viewable for the messages.
Okay. All right. Yep.
But I can, like I said, I can send that out, and I think you've been getting emails.
I'm not sure. I've gotten some, but I haven't gotten a lot.
Okay. You've gotten any from Bill, like the newsletter?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Because that's where I pull the mail list from. So I'll pull it from the newsletter, resend it out, invite again. So look for it in your email shortly.
Okay. All right. Good. Thank you.
Another business, are you in new or old business? I forget which.
We're in old business.
Okay, good. Bill isn't here, so let me just echo. The attendance sheet is online, and so far from the meeting on January 20th, I noticed, January, the January meeting, I noticed that there were 12 people who have indicated they were present. Today's, Roger, you've already indicated, good. So I encourage you to keep this current. Should you be eligible for prizes and also be considered a functioning member of the qualified member of the club and such. So if you recall, if you look in Bill's latest newsletter, just click on that link, and then on the row where your name is in the column, which is the date of the meeting, in a month at least, just put a check mark in the box, and that's all. I mean, you don't have to save it. You don't have to, there's no passwords involved. There's no whatever, you just click on the link and click on the box and exit. So keep track of your attendance in there. So that would be very helpful. We'll probably send that out again. He did take a screenshot and put it in the newsletter so you can see how it looks. So it should look the same. It should work with any browser. I notice it works with my smartphone and also from my iPad. So there's no reason that you shouldn't be able to have access to that.
I
Uh,
lost track of that link. Could you resend that again?
Well, do you have Bill's newsletter?
The open mic?
Yeah,
Mike.
Yeah, I got that.
yeah, it's in there.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. And I should have emphasized that in that particular newsletter. Also then, Bill and I have finally got up and running the YouTube channel for our club. And that hosts all the meetings, which of course is being recorded right now, thanks to Mike. So if you're wondering what happened during the meeting and or what the program was afterwards, just go to the YouTube channel, click on the month, and you'll see a video, hopefully, of the meeting and such. One of the challenges was to record the whole thing because some ran out longer than an hour, which now is not a problem. We can actually run up a whole day. And the other was just the way it looks. So that link also is in the newsletter. So if you want to browse the YouTube channel for the meeting and or programs, you can. The nice thing about it is you don't have to just read the PowerPoint. You can actually hear the audio that goes with it during the program. So you can, comprehend, except for those guys who read the PowerPoints, which we won't go into. Boring. Okay, so that's the second thing that I wanted to mention, which is just out of the newsletter. So appreciate if you look at those things. That's all I got. Thank you.
Now, is that YouTube channel? Is that private channel? Is that a public channel, or is that open to anybody, or just our group, or how does that work?
It's set up just for our group, and you need to have the link to view it. So it's private in that sense. To the extent the link gets publicized, then it leaks. I think what we'll do over time maybe is change the link every once in a while just to help that. So yeah, that's a good point. Thank you.
Okay. One of the notes I had for today. Okay, Mike, are we doing Skywarn or Chanhassen doing online, or how's that working this year?
Yes, I'm actually setting up and we'll be sending out invites here for March 22nd at 6 p.m. and whatever that Thursday in March is that same week. So I'm setting up 2 of them because and they will be online. So I will be doing them virtually. It'll be the 20, I'm pulling up my calendar here, so bear with me. 22nd and the 25th at 6 p.m. You can sign up for either or. There will be an invite going out. You will have to register, and the registration form will be there to fill out, just as if you were in class. You'll check a box to say if I needed a weather spotter ID or not. So stay tuned, it's coming. And I'll probably shoot it out on the reflector here, on the new reflector. So go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I've got a live Skywarn training, spotter training session planned for March 14th, Sunday, 1 o'clock at St. Mary's Church in Uppsala. And it's going to be a live session. And I know, Wayne, I believe I emailed you on that. And
yes, I'm going to bring that up today also, right after Mike.
Yeah, and it's the same day that daylight saving time kicks in. So,
oh, good. Everybody will be awake.
Yeah.
That's why I brought it up today, because I saw your emails. So I bring them both up at the same time, yours and Mike's.
Yeah, no pre-registration if necessary, but I would like to have an idea of how many are going to be there, because we got to keep the social distance and all that.
I'll probably be looking at the online one then. Is
Yeah,
the same?
and I'm looking for the online to actually hopefully reach a lot more, especially on firefighters, because they have training nights and they're all kind of scattered all over the county here. So that's why I'm doing that.
Is it the same material we had last year then, or is it new material or?
Same material. So if you took it last year, you don't need to worry about it.
Yeah, I'll be
But-
presenting the same material as 2 years ago.
Yeah, because I just checked with National Weather Service. The only thing is you know, there's some interesting statistics, and Tom, I should send that to you. It's interesting that we had 59 tornadoes last year. 23 of them were in August on one day. So it's there's some interesting statistics that I got from Todd Krause. So I'll send them to you.
Yeah, send them to me. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm registered with Chanhassen and also registered with Duluth. So I've gone through both training in both classes. I did the winter one also with Duluth. Okay, that takes care of
Wayne,
Skyborn.
I
Yes.
think you covered the repeaters, but I should note, we have, of course, repeaters down here too. But of the 3 that are accessible from my location, 2 went off the air in the ice storm. The antennas froze up and the SWR caused the transmitters to go off the air. So we lost our repeaters during the ice storm. I don't know if that happens up there or not.
We got auxiliary power at the place there. Well, I don't know how long auxiliary power is good for, but at least we have auxiliary power for a while anyway.
Do you have de-icer on the antennas?
Nope, we don't.
No, we always hope that it gets cold enough that it doesn't ice here.
Okay.
It's just snow.
Okay, thank you.
The other thing too, I want to let everybody know is if you are already signed up, you did not receive an invite again. Appears that the system actually knocks those out. So there were 17 invites resent out. So look in your email if you're not already signed up. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Any other old business? Any new business? No new business?
I have been working with a group of people from the under Bill Parker from the Red Cross, and they're looking to get some of the ARCs involved in some of the drills upcoming. I think there's an upcoming drill maybe today at St. Cloud, but the Red Cross is looking to organize a little bit more in terms of radio, ham radio involvement. They've been looking for ham radio operators who have past or present experience with the Red Cross.
Which Red Cross are you talking about, Jim?
The one I've been dealing with is the chapter house out of St. Cloud.
Which goes all the way out to Fargo and Grand Forks. It's got a pretty strong reach now.
You know if the St. Cloud Ham Club is involved with them?
Yes, they are. So they will be involved with the drill today, but this is also a group of hams under Bill Parker that's been having discussions about once a month about trying to organize it a little bit more. So if anyone's interested in that, contact me.
Does the Red Cross want help with VHF, UHF within a local disaster area, or do they want HF as well?
We're actually looking for both, yeah. And that's one of the things we are investigating in this group is what we would put together as a team or as a resource essentially for Red Cross in terms of an HF resource as well as the usual VHF, UHF. We've been looking at 160 meter antennas, but I'm not sure if 160 meters is really right for that work personally, since a lot of the times during the day, 160 meters is dead, even here in Minnesota.
One of the interesting things that really comes out of a lot of disasters, especially some that where the power is limited and the reach needs to be fairly close, is they've been using 6 meters. And a simple 6 meter vertical is amazing on the distance that it can reach. So, and doing it on sideband, not on FM, and it's got a pretty darn good reach.
I will bring that up with them and make sure they've considered that.
How about 20 meter? That seems to be kind of
20
ubiquitous.
meters too far.
Too far, and then the other problem is often too busy. It's difficult to find a frequency to work on 20 meters usually. And to have a frequency which you would identify as a meeting point, that's never going to work on 20 meters.
So in too far, I mean, they don't intend to communicate outside the general area, like to national or any other region?
Traffic is usually local.
Yeah.
It starts
yeah.
local. So
Well, that kind of limits
you got to
HF
remember
then.
that you got to start local first before you start moving out. And then at that point you have a MAC
So
already
main-
set up that does the national.
So mainly it'll be VHF and UHF.
Mostly.
Because
However,
everything else HF, you're going to be in the skip zone.
yeah, however, 80 meters works really nicely for NVIS. I mean, if you've been involved at all with the section net or with any of the other nets, it works really nicely most of the day.
Okay, thank you. Any other new business?
I will bring this up. Mama Marla's will be happening on May 15th. However, I really, be honest with you, is just with the number of club members that we have that are available. That's about all I'm going to need. They have changed the route completely. It's an out and back. And we're going to look at possibly not needing any more than 2 or 3 additional people. So it's been shortened up. They're not going to do that long, crazy route that goes all the way around, and we have to worry about bikers coming down that main highway that people seem to think it's good to do 70 miles an hour on when you're coming over the hill. So there's some good news there, but it is still planned on happening no matter what.
Oh, I thought they were all done.
No, well,
You keep
Mama
saying they're all done.
Marla says that every year, and they thought that was going to happen this year, but this might be the last year if somebody does not pick it up. And they've been trying to get the social services to try to pick it up, but because this is benefiting them and their children, and it has not been much. So it's a lot of work that Marla puts into it, and she's getting tired. So, and as we all know, it's a lot of work to set up an event. So
I move we adjourn.
You have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, approve? So moved. I had a question, for you, Mike. Quite actually a question. I've been helping out the last I've only missed a couple of years.
Yep.
So you can put me down as a helper if you want.
Okay, I will do that.
I've only missed a couple of years in all the years you've done it.
Yeah. And Wayne, I think are you on the holding pattern because you don't know if they're going to have your radio thing?
I probably will be available because it's just too many people in one small location, and I'm not comfortable with that yet. I think May is a little too soon for that, so you can put me down also.
Okay. Well, I didn't know because I figured they were going to be, but let me know. Either way, we should be good for people. So thank you. All right. So Wayne, are you gonna want to share your screen?
I am going to need to share the screen because I'll be doing a PowerPoint. So I am going to click on share and you'll have to allow me.
Yep. There you go.
Okay, now I need to just plain get into the slideshow. And I think I should be presenting. Okay, good morning from Osakis. I did this, create this presentation almost a year ago. I was supposed to give it last April, and it turned out that due to our circumstances, it did not happen. So the slides have been updated and everything else, and let's hope that it works well today. Okay, what you're going to end up learning about, I'm going to be talking a little bit about your first radio and antennas. And by the way, the topic is antennas. Okay, there'll be things to consider when you're selecting an antenna, what type of antennas you're going to be using and all that. Homebrew versus commercial. Hey, you can make your own stuff, or hey, go out to the candy store and buy it. Well, we haven't got any candy stores nearby. Jim may be down there in Texas, but up here, not much. So it's the old internet that you go on and look for different antenna materials or antennas commercially. I'm going to be doing some comparisons, dipoles, verticals, and Yagis. Okay, can't forget about feed lines and SWR, standing wave ratio. And also, the most important thing is safety. Okay, big antennas equal big signals. I don't think you can dispute that at all. But with small wire antennas, you can talk around the world. And hey, we got the sunspot cycle that's starting to emerge now. They're saying it's going to be one of the best. I mean, I didn't believe it earlier, but now they're really saying this is going to be a good one. So even with just probably even a coat hanger, you're going to be able to almost work the world. And the principles of how antennas work, they're all the same for all antennas. Hey, many of you, your first radio was the UHF VHF handheld. And it's got an antenna called a rubber duck or a ducky antenna. The ducky antenna is an electrically shorted monopole. And there's a lot of words in here you may not understand, or you should be by taking your ham radio test, but you probably forgot it. But anyways, that functions somewhat like a base-loaded whip antenna. The rubber duck is also called the ducky. That's what we refer to it anyways in ham jargon. And it's a coiled wire coated in tough plastic. Convenient in size, rugged enough for handheld use. The radio and operator make up the ground plane. And small size equals compromised performance. So it means you're not going to be able to use it for real long distances, but it's good for ending up doing the talking to repeaters if you're within a few miles of the repeater site. You hold it vertically to maximize its range. It does not work well inside vehicles, how much I found after I first moved back to Osakis, due to the metal body shielding the signal. For mobile use, you replace the rubber ducky with an external magnet mount or permanent antenna. That's what I did, and it worked well. I mean, for a long period of time when I didn't have a different radio in the car or truck. Hey, your first antenna, if not a rubber ducky, could have ended up being a roll-up J-pole, and that's used for a VHF and UHF. Or maybe just the J-pole by itself that you might have built or purchased and put up on a pole. Okay, a long wire or dipole antenna. Those are usually one of the most common first antennas if it wasn't the rubber ducky, and that's used for HF. Okay, followed by a vertical. You can either build a vertical or purchase a vertical, and they come in many flavors and sizes for HF, VHF, and UHF. Or mobile antenna, which is usually a vertical. Okay, now things to consider in antenna selection. Single band versus multi-band. It has a big difference. I mean, on the single band, that's going to actually do very, very well. Multi-band, they're usually compromised a little bit, but they work very well. And it also depends upon the performance. I mean, the performance of both, they're different, and that's what your needs are, what you desire. Weight and size. That's another thing you have to consider, and then depending upon where you live and what you have for where you're going to be able to put it. Cost. I mean, for a lot of people, cost can be a major category. So here might be where you end up building your own instead of buying commercial. Also, available space. I'm lucky. I live out in the country. I got a lot of space, so I can put up everything under the sun. But some of you that live in apartments or in townhouses, condos, or anything else, it turns out there may be restrictions. And then you got to end up working with your area about what the restrictions are. And there are communities that have restrictions itself. Also, you have to think about, is this going to be a fixed site? Is it going to be portable use, such as what Mike does with his backpacker antenna? And for field days and for special events, or is it going to be mobile for your truck or car? Hey, home brew. Let's not forget home brew. Build it yourself. It can be done. We're ham operators, and basically, it's the fun part of ham radio to get in there and do some home brewing. Take a look at this. I mean, it looks like a mangled mess of whatever, and you say, is it really going to work? Well, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. And that's some experimenting, and you'd be surprised what works. Right, Mike? Okay, now let's consider commercial. I mean, this is going in a big way, and I'm not showing the wire antennas you can buy commercially. You can buy G5RV, you can buy trapped antennas, you can buy all kinds of other stuff, or you can go with a big beams, or you get some kind called Yagis. And then, take a look at this one over here for 40 meters. I mean, that's a big antenna. That's a beam antenna at 40. This K3LR antenna, he's on the East Coast. That's a big, gigantic antenna farm. Google it, and you're going to be surprised what you might see for antennas. But it turns out that you can get either commercial antennas, probably not locally, but you can get them off the internet and get them sent to you. Okay, now here is one of the most important antennas when you're a newbie or a seasoned ham. It's a half-wave dipole. And basically, this is one of the easiest antennas to design and build for both the new as well as the seasoned ham. All you need is a roll of wire, either bare or insulated, a couple of insulators for either end, and they can be homemade, such as a 1.5 by 3-inch piece of plexiglass rod or flat stock, or purchased dog bone or porcelain style egg antennas. This one's for Jim. Down in Texas, you also need a 1-to-1 balun. I caught heck, I think, at field day for not using a 1-to-1 balun on a 40-meter antenna. That did not work at field day. So I guess, yes, a balun is pretty much required, but you can get by without them. I have for years, but I guess I am now a believer. And you can either build your own, or you can end up buying commercial. And then a center insulator that is 50 or used for 50 at center insulator, and that can end up being part of the balun, and then a 50 to 75 ohm coax feed line. Okay, let's do some calculations to make a 10-meter dipole cut antenna for the center of a technician portion of the 28.3 to 28.5 megahertz band. Therefore, using the formula down here at the bottom, 468, that's a constant, divided by frequency in megahertz, equals the length of wire in feet. We're talking length of wire from end to end distance. And basically, by doing that, you plug in the numbers, and we'll end up using, I think, 28.4 as being the center number. That comes out to 197.746 inches from end to end. Make it a little bit simpler. That's about 16.5 feet from end to end. You got to remember this thing in the center, the 1-to-1 balun, that you have to end up taking that wire, cut it in half, and that makes about 8 foot 3 inches for each leg that goes between the outer insulator and the center balun, and that's for either side. You have to cut it a little bit longer because you have wraps here at the center balun. You have a wrap out here at the end insulator. And later on, when you do some tuning of this to get the lowest standing wave ratio, you're going to want to probably at this end, at the end insulator, to be able to do a little bit of lengthening or shortening to get the lowest standing wave ratio. But with this type of antenna, just with using the formula and basically just building it in that way, your chances are you're probably going to end up coming up pretty close to being able to utilize it in maybe 300 kilohertz area of the 10-meter band. And this antenna is good for any of the bands from 160 all the way out through probably 10 meters. But I thought the idea for this morning's talk was for technicians out there that, hey, we got the sunspot cycle coming up. Hey, let's build some antennas. Let's get them up. You can work 10 meters and you get on in voice. Okay, the dipole antenna is also not just, it's normally a horizontal antenna, but it doesn't have to stay horizontal. You can end up doing it as an inverted V dipole. And you end up cutting it about the same length, but I believe by because of the 45-degree angle, and it doesn't always have to be 45, it can be whatever you have available that you can get to trees or anything from the center. It's going to change a little bit, but it may end up having to be just a little bit longer in length, but it shouldn't make a whole lot of difference because I built a lot of these dipoles, had them in inverted V fashion, and I've gone from anywhere from 20 feet in the air down to 3 feet off the ground on the ends, and they all work. Okay, there are some other things for the half-wave dipole. I'm not going to really go into them, but there's a folded dipole, and that one, I made 1 or 2 in my career. The center, for the feed line, it's about a 300 ohm impedance instead of 50 to 75 ohm. So it's going to end up taking a different type of feed line, such as an open feed line, ladder feed line, I should say, to feed this. There's also for trap dipole, and that I'm not going to go into how to build or anything, but basically you have a trap dipole so you can work more than one band. And say 80 and 40 meters, you want an antenna for that. You could use a trap dipole and get on those bands, or they're for many of the other bands. The dipole itself has a directional pattern, and what it is the lobes are going out from the, not the long side of the antenna, not from the ends, they're going from the side of the antenna. So say you wanted a signal to go east-west, your ends of your antenna are going to be from the north to the south. And then you're going to have an east-west signal with your dipole antenna. And the radiation pattern looks like a donut or a bagel. Okay, something else that I'm going to go into, and this is what we have for the club, built for the club, is a extended center-fed ZEP, and it's 460 meters through 6 meters. And basically, the one that we have for the club is 170 feet long, and longer the better. I've seen them out to 300, 350, I guess about 350 feet is maximum I've seen from some of the other people that I know that have them. And this one is utilized quite extensively by the Stillwater Amateur Radio Club. And I know that there's well over 100 of these antennas, just in the Minnesota area. It's also called the OXB Special. You go out and you can check this out on the Google and on the internet, just say OXB Special antenna, and it's going to pop up for all reasons. Well, the reason is that W0 OXB, Dave Glass, pushed this over 25, 30 years ago as being the antenna to use. And somehow it gained notoriety, only to find out that actually this antenna has been around forever. We have one. We utilize it at the field day or special events. This one, you do have ladder line that is the feed. And we have 100 feet. We've gone a little bit far too extensive on that. It should be down to maybe about 50 feet or 60 foot of ladder line. And then you do need a 4-to-1 balun, current balun, to convert it. So when you want to run it into your shack or something with coax, that has to get it down to around 50 ohms. And the shorter the length of coax coming, the better. We found out that 100 feet is way too much. 20 to 30 feet is what is very ideal. And this one is a universal antenna for multi-bands. It is not as good as a dipole for either hearing or for transmitting, but it is excellent as a universal overall antenna. It's easy to build and easy to use. But also you do need a tuner. Forgot about that. You do need a tuner. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to use that antenna because the SWR on that antenna can be very high. Hey, there's a quarter wave vertical, and that has a different, if you want to build one, you can end up using the formula 234 over frequency in megahertz. It is a single band antenna and works quite well. I ended up building one, and we used it for our special event for 1 year for celebrating the commemoration of our club, the length of the club have any existence. And I mean, it would just throw together with some aluminum rod, and that worked very well, but it was flimsy. And after a year, it broke. But that was a quarter wave vertical, and we ended up utilizing on 20 meters. And this is what I used, 234 divided by F, the frequency to get it, and it worked very well. And we made contacts around the world with that one. Okay, the radiation pattern with that is circular. I mean, not circular, but it goes out in all directions. And basically, I mean, it is a very good overall type of antenna for just, I mean, for local type of use. And it's one that, I mean, for the quarter wave vertical, it's being utilized for, that's what you use for your cars, I mean, with your mag mounts or anything else. And then you have the car or truck roof or hood or whatever it may be as being your ground plane. Okay, multi-band verticals. Hey, the club has one of these also. And we utilize that during field day and special events. And it actually works darn well. Not as good as the dipoles, I mean, on the way it turns out, but I think Mike liked that for doing PSK. And then, that's the one that Mike grabbed all the time for utilized for PSK. And he worked all over the place and got a lot of contacts for field day and racked up points for us. Okay.
It's a very good antenna for digital.
Yes, excellent antenna. But
and that includes CW.
Probably through 20 meters, you can get out, I mean, with elements out to 40 and 80, but it's compromised extensively unless you go with a very good commercial antenna. And I mean, I have heard, I mean, the commercial antennas for de-expeditions, they're using verticals that I know are fantastic out on a beach or something and works really well. Okay, something else. The Yagi antenna is also called a beam. I don't know why, but anyways, they call it ham jargon, call it a beam. The Yagi is perhaps the ham's favorite directional antenna. They usually consist of one driven element and several on-driven elements. Reflector is longer than the driver. There's a driven element, which is the driver, and that's usually a half-wave dipole. And then one or more directors that are shorter to give the direction that the signal is going to be pointed at and being used. We have one of these also. And we don't have the tower anymore, but we do have the antenna, and it was very, very good for use for field day and special events. Okay, here's what they look like. Showing a 3-element HF Yagi and then a VHF Yagi. It's in the horizontal plane for the VHF, But if you want to use it for DX, normally it's in this plane, the horizontal. But if you want to use it for repeaters and stuff, it's usually flipped into a vertical type position. Not straight up and down, of course, but I mean pointed out at the front end, pointed towards the repeater. They're either single or multi-band antennas. Okay, the Yagi is a directional antenna, as I said. And basically what you have is your driven element where you're feeding it from your rig and then from the transmitter, and then heading out, it has a reflector. And then it also has a director and it gives gain. And the gain is like a lens. And basically it's shooting the signal in one direction and is doing very, very well. I mean, for giving gain, and off the back, it's basically not hardly any signal going off in that direction. That's shown by the pattern of radiation. Gigantic lobe heading in one direction. That's the front to back ratio. In the back direction, there's very little lobe and a few side lobes. But it's a very nice free power gain, and also for listening, if you point it at whatever you want to listen, and it's going to bring up that signal dramatically. You turn it off to the sides or back around the other way. You may not even hear the station that when it's coming in from the front side. Okay, a hex beam. An ex-member of ours who passed away was W0JAR, and he had one of these that he was using for DX. And I mean, he ended up with his DXCC off of this. Okay, Vlad ended up, one of our other members that was quite a while ago, he did a lot of de-expeditions. I mean, went out onto different places, and usually out at Runestone Park, he would experiment, and this was one of the experimental antennas that he was going to use maybe down, I believe, in Central America. And this is a hex beam, and it is some spreaders and then wire. And it is a very, very nice antenna, works very well, and it's lightweight. Now, in comparison, you can take a look at this, and basically here is the size of a beam or Yagi antenna versus the footprint of a hex antenna. And also, it has probably less wind load than the larger size Yagi. We can't forget about portable and mobile operations. Right, Jim? I think you're a rover, and this isn't showing any of the UHF, VHF, and higher antennas, but basically there you go with your mobile out roving and giving out the different grid squares and collecting grid squares. Also, you can end up being out there like for field day with portable antennas or for special events, and basically it looks like here they might have set up a tent or something, but a good share of our members of the club utilize both portable and mobile, and it's a good compromise. If you haven't got the space or availability to put up antennas at home, here's another way that you can get out and enjoy this hobby. Let's get this antenna up to the tower. It takes a little bit of people power. I'm gonna be politically correct. I could say manpower, but I'm not going to use that. Whoops, I just did. Okay, guys, safety matters. I mean, this is one of the most important things. Doing antennas, I don't care what they are. From this type of antenna, I mean, with the towers, with the Yagi's beams, or with the wire antennas, safety makes a big difference. This is one of the most important things to think on, because we've lost a few of our brethren, and I know at least one personally over in Wisconsin that he was a big time DXer and had a power station, and I think close to about 80 years old, was up the tower, and he fell. Okay, don't put up antennas where they can fall across power lines or even come in contact with power lines. Don't climb towers without a safety belt. If you're working under a tower, it's a sure good idea to have and wear a hard hat. And don't work without a good ground crew. I'm saying good, I say ground crew here, but a good ground crew can make your job easier if you're up that tower. Hey, I'm going to special or come on with danger again about power lines. Don't be stupid and be dead. Power lines, power can kill, and basically antennas can come in contact with those power lines, and you could be one of those statistics, and we don't want that to happen to anyone, and especially anyone in our club. All right, another safety thing is lightning. You can go full bore and spend a lot of money on doing lightning safety, or you can be the smart way to do it. And there's many ways, and this has been disputed and talked about all over the place, but grounding antennas when not in use. Good idea. Ground the tower structure itself. I'm actually grounding all 3 legs of my tower and using good copper and putting it down 8 foot long. And then outside the shack, I have another ground rod, and it's good to bond them together if you can. I have a good 150-foot run to my tower, so I am not being able to bond or have not bonded. But that, again, can be discussed by many different people and come up with many different ideas. Also, disconnect the AC power mains, not your power, I should say, from your radios and that, from the mains during storms, or use line conditioners or surge suppressors. Now, like at the cop shop that we have surge suppressors in there, since we can't get in there and disconnect the antennas, even though we've leaving the antennas disconnected since we're not utilizing them all the time. And also, get off the air during storms. I mean, you don't want to have the chance. Lightning doesn't have to hit your shack. All it has to do is hit nearby, and it can come in, and you could end up getting it zapped pretty bad, if not killed.
Wayne, got a question for you.
Yes.
So what happens to long wires in the wind?
Oh.
Can you go to touch them?
You don't want to. It's wind or snow. I mean, it could be snow, it could be wind, and it builds up a field on those long wires or even on your dipole. And I can tell you a quick story on that. When I was just a young ham novice, I had a dipole antenna out, and I disconnected the coax, but it was the end of the coax or something was near a cold air return. And I'm waking up and I'm hearing tick, tick, tick. And this is not during so much wind, but it was during snow and wind both going by. I could hear kind of a ticking and all of a sudden a large snap. Well, it turns out that was the buildup and then discharge to the ground. Also, during field day one year, I ended up with a couple other hams, and we had a V-beam up, and that was up at 65 feet, 3 wires going in 3 different directions, a center, and that could pull either one side or the other. Well, it turns out a thunderstorm was coming in, and when we ended up using a ground, I mean, it was a big knife switch. When he grounded, it was a gigantic arc from just the buildup from the field. So you're exactly right, Mike. Thank you. Good point. Okay, feed lines. Hey, you can't talk about the antennas without having a feed line. You got to get that antenna into your shack, I mean, so you can utilize it. So anyways, your feed line connects your radio to the antenna. Feed lines are either balanced, which where neither side are grounded, or like ladder line, unbalanced, one side is grounded, with a ladder line, one side is grounded. Let's try it over again, because I just screwed that one up. Ladder lines are unbalanced, where one side basically, neither side are grounded, whereas coax, one side is grounded, like the shield. Okay, either type can be used in your station, and coax is more popular and easier to work with, because when you have the open line feed, then you're probably going to have to end up using, you'll have to use a balun, or you're going to, not so much with that, but it would be with a antenna tuner. A lot of antenna tuners have baluns in it, and basically you hook that in, and then you're going to be able to work a number of different bands. Coax versus ladder line. Okay, coax can be buried or run near metal objects. less radio frequency interference, since the outer shield is usually grounded, weatherproof, and easy to handle and connect. A ladder line has a very low signal loss, whereas coax has signal loss. It can tolerate high standing wave ratios and can tolerate high current. So they both have their place. And if you're a newbie, it's good to start off with coax. And as you start learning and getting into it, ladder line may be the thing to go to because normally it's less loss. I use both. Okay, SWR. I'm not going to go too far into this because that could be a whole topic onto itself. But it's standing wave ratio. It's a mathematical expression of power going to the antenna and the power being reflected back, just to make it as an easy idea. The idea is to get as close to a 1-to-1 as possible. Most hams are happy with a standing wave ratio of 1.5 to 1. When I do a calculation, say like with my Yagi antenna, or even like with my dipoles, I'll push it out to 2 to 1, but then utilize a antenna, what am I trying to say? A tuner. Utilize a tuner to get it down so you're not causing problems back to your radio, and get it down so it's close to 1-to-1 or something. What the idea is, if you want to end up having a very good antenna and not have to use a tuner and standing wave ratio, then you end up cutting the antenna to resonance. And that basically would be for a dipole antenna. But with those, it's single band, and usually it's a certain frequency you would pick, you would cut your antenna to, and then get it adjusted for the lowest standing wave ratio. And then you might have 30 to 50 kilohertz either side that you're going to be able to operate without having the standing wave ratio starting to go up. Okay, resources. We're getting close to the end of the talk, guys. We're at 31 minutes, or going on 32 minutes, and I was shooting for 30. There's all kinds of resources out there, antenna handbooks, antenna books all over the place, and they're very ready available through ARRL. These are the ones that I have on hand right now. Projects. Well, it turns out QST just came out with the latest QST, and there was projects, antenna projects and more, but it disappointed me because this wasn't their antenna issue. And the antenna project was more or less for searching out for noise or stuff, but QST is a good one. Once a year, they come out with an antenna project book or antenna book, and it comes out with all kinds of antennas that you can experiment or try to build. And it's fun and it's enjoyable, and you might get them even to work. Hey, here's some projects that I've built. One of them to the very left was a 10-meter dipole cut for the technician. And that one did not have a 1-to-1 balun, but it was cut for use, and it works fairly well. The one to the right, which has a 1-to-1 balun, we've utilized that many times. It's 20 meters. It was used for fielding not last year, the year before. It was used also at a special event for Mountain Sauk Center. And it has worked both DX and anywhere around the United States. Okay, there's one here that has the 4 legs coming out. That one is a 440 antenna. That I utilized for satellite work, for the uplink for satellites. And then I used a different antenna for 2-meter for the downlink. And I made quite a few contacts just utilizing that, holding that in my hand and using a handheld antenna, radio, and for 2 and 440. And I've made a number of satellite contacts, talking in voice, FM, using that. This other one sitting on the antenna handbook is a 1090, one for the frequency of 1090 megahertz. This is getting up in the gyms area, but outside of the ham radio band. This was used to monitor the airplanes that are coming over the Douglas County, Todd County area. and using their downlink and basically giving positions of where they're at. That's just another little radio hobby that I'm doing and tracking the planes that are within 50 to 100 miles from this location. Okay, in summary, my opinion, the most important part of your station is your antenna. I'll repeat that. Most important part of your station is your antenna, not the radios, the big expensive radios you could buy or anything else. Without the antenna, your radio is going to be worthless. Okay, any questions, comments?
Bill, Wayne, I got one.
Yes.
The 440 antenna that you just showed with the 4 radials on the base. What is is there a formula or equation for the length of those radials, and is it important to have just 4, or is more the merrier?
More the merrier. And basically, it's a formula for a vertical, quarter wave vertical. And that's at 254 over frequency, I believe, that I showed back quite a few slides. But I just Googled that and came up with a formula. And that one, I did try utilizing that up at about 20 feet for hitting our ALEC repeater for 440, and it did not work.
Okay, because I'll be putting up a vertical antenna like that for 220, and I am curious. I was just going to make it a dipole, quarter wave up, quarter wave down, fed like a dipole, but vertically oriented. And I think it might be better to have radials like you had on your 440.
You can make it for 220, 440, or even 2 meters. I mean, you can use the same thing, and it would be the same thing. And basically, the more the merrier on the radials. I ended up just coming out with 4 because it was easier when I was doing the building, but the more the merrier. By the way, that one that I had, the ground plane of the copper underneath, was actually poorer, if that's a word, than one that had the actual separate radials coming out. So I discarded the one that I had, the metal ground plane, and came up with the radials, individual wires. And that's the one I'm utilizing today.
Very good, Wade. A good presentation. I also have a comment. My favorite antenna for HF is a loop antenna. I'm currently using a full wave 80-meter loop, 282 feet all the way around, about 50 feet up in the air. And I have found, and I also have a off-center fed dipole as a backup. The noise, the atmospheric noise that I get off of the loop antenna is a full 2 S units lower than what I get on the dipole. And my understanding for that is that an antenna that has an open end, like a dipole or beam or vertical, that antenna is sensitive to the electric field of a signal, whereas a loop antenna is sensitive to the magnetic field. The atmospheric noise tends to be all electric field. So that's what I have come to understand, the reason why loop antennas are so much more quieter. I mean, on 20 meters, I have maybe an S1 noise, and you go higher in frequency, it's even less than that. So I really like the loop antennas. Do you have any comments on that?
Oh, I sure do. The reason I didn't bring up the loop antenna in this presentation was that most people are not as lucky as you and I to have the real estate. But the loop is one fantastic antenna and does, like you just said, a very excellent job. And I mean, I promote the loop fully if you have the availability to put one up. So I mean, a very good comment and good points on that, because you've hit it, nailed it right on the head. And I mean, it is just a wonderful antenna.
Okay, Wayne, thanks a lot. Good presentation.
Okay, I guess that's all I have, and it took me 39 minutes to cover this topic that I was doing in 30.
I got 2 comments for you, Wayne.
Yes.
Okay, on that ground planes,
Yes.
the Motorola commercial antennas, the big 20-foot sticks, you see?
Yep.
They had 3 ground planes, 3 of them, angled downwards.
Yep.
And then most time people use 4, but you can get by with 3. Commercially, they do 3.
Yes.
But like you were saying, more the better. The other comment I had was insulation over your wire. It'll change the length of the antenna.
It will change it, but you still use the same formula. And I found that it doesn't make a whole lot of difference because I mean, all the antennas I've used both, I mean, regular bare wire, copper clad. I've used all kinds of different ones, and then the ones that are insulated, and I prefer insulated now because sometimes I'm going through trees and other things where it will be compromised if you have a bare antenna. And usually I use just that SWR meter, and then once I put it up, then I cut it back down to length. I make usually the antenna wire longer than what it calls by the formula, by up to a foot and a half longer on either end. And then I start tuning it at maybe 1 to 2 inches at a time. It takes 5 or 6 different times to get it down to the frequency that you're at or want, but it's well worth it to have it much longer because adding wire doesn't quite work as easy.
Question.
Yes.
Yeah, when you mentioned the club does no longer has a tower, did we lose our portable tower?
We ended up scrapping it. It was too dangerous. And basically for doing the repair and whatever was needed, we scrapped that about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, and it went to the junkyard.
Okay, with regard to the radios, the higher you're above the ground, the fewer radios you need. So if you're on the ground and your radios are on the surface or buried in the surface, you need the maximum number of radios. The higher you get above the ground, the fewer radios you'll need, and the remote station won't notice whether you have 2 or 3 or 4 radios as you get high enough.
Very, very good point. And I didn't bring up other different flavors. I mean, there's the off-center fed dipole, and we utilized one of those a few times out at Runestone, and we found out we ended up having to have a counterpoise, which is a ground plane underneath that antenna. Otherwise, it did not work as well. But there's many, many antennas, and I know that you can experiment with. Get out there and try it. Build your own. You don't have to go and buy it from a local grocery store. You can build your own. Go over to Menards, pick up some wire, and you can make your own insulators. The only thing is that center point should be a Ballon, but it doesn't have to be for your first try. You may or may not be successful with currents that are on that running back down the coax, but normally, if you have it cut to the proper length and everything, you're not going to have the currents coming back. But be aware that without that center Ballon, and if you have a microphone that's a metal microphone, you could get bit. I did years ago. There's current coming back down, and all of a sudden, you're speaking in a microphone, and all of a sudden, ouch, that hurt. Nothing that's lethal, nothing that's going to hurt you, but hey, it can happen. Safety, safety, safety.
To say I had that same thing when I had my amplifier hooked up and in my antenna tuner came back and bit me in the finger.
Oh yeah, no, that can exactly happen, but it turns out that safety, safety, safety. You cannot push it more, and that's my feeling is again. Your antenna is number one. I mean, that's your major component for all your whole ham radio station, followed by the radio, and put your money into the antenna, then followed by the radio if you can. Thank you ever so much for listening today. I hope I didn't bore you too much.
Thank you, Wayne. Great job.
I got a question for you, Mike.
Thank you. Very complete.
Got a question for TAF. When is this recording will be available?
When will what?
This recording be available?
I will send it to Bill because I don't have access to, or to Jim. I just throw it out there on the shared drive. Jim, you have access to the shared drive, right?
Mike, I'll send you the link.
Okay. And then I can post it up there because I did a recording to the cloud for this, so I just got to download it from the cloud.
Okay, I was curious, guys. I've been taking notes for Bill, but I don't have all the notes on, so I can go back and listen to it again.
No, we are good. In fact, it's still recording.
Thanks,
It's
Mike.
been a good session today. We've had a good share of our members and looks good.
Yep. Just remember to go in there and check your attendance on the attendance sheet. Norm, I accidentally checked you, so I just left you checked. By the way, it was still loading when I clicked.
Oh, thank you very much.
So you're all set, man.
And welcome to Dave Bartlow. Thanks for showing up this morning.
Yes, Dave.
Yeah, glad to be here for once.
Mike, can you allow me to share? I have an antenna I need to show.
Go ahead.
Let's see. Is it on? Okay. Let me choose it here. Let's see, it's probably this one. Did that come through?
Yep.
Oh my.
Okay, so this is my, you mentioned Wayne, my rover. This is my rover car down there, and here's the antenna. Let me move that around. So on top is a 6-meter stressed Moxon, which is sort of like a Yagi. There's a 2-meter beam by it and another 2-meter beam beneath it. So there's a pair of stacked 2-meter beams. Then if you can make out, there are 4, 70 centimeter, which is better known as 432 megahertz beams in an array. And then there are a pair of 222, better known as 1 1/4 meter band. This, let me get the detail here. So these is a slider. These are stacked horizontally. So you got to be careful not to have any metal in the horizontal plane. So these are fiberglass, square fiberglass tubing that slide in and out to get the proper spacing. Here's also fiberglass tubing on the 432, fiberglass tubing. Here's a switch to switch all the coax down to 1 down lead. And yes, the transmission line is important. This is just a switch. Okay, so this is a portable tower. I used to try to push that up manually, but it got a little overgrown and heavy. So it now has, you will recognize, a boat trailer crank on there, and a cable to winch up each section. There are 4 sections to this tower. The sections are 6-foot telescoping square tubing, stainless steel, not stainless, I'm sorry. One on the top, another there, another there, and one going down to the rotor. The rotor is on the bumper mount. You can see the rotor down there. So transmission line, we have the single coax. We have a rotor control. Going back to the car, we have a cable going up to control the switch, to switch the coax to a single downlink or down transmission line. In back, these are spacers, non-conducting spacers to keep the antennas approximately in alignment, so that when you crank them up, they don't get out of alignment. That actually should be a little higher than shown there. And yes, these are horizontal antennas, obviously. There is one vertical antenna here, just for coordination with other rovers. So you have the rotor at the bottom, you have a bearing there, such that the whole thing doesn't tip over. That goes on to the luggage rack. You have some emergency lights, one on the left, one on the right. We have some cones out there for safety purposes. Let's see what else. Okay, so here is a way that the 2 antennas, this is a power divider, this long tube here. So the one antenna comes in by equidistant coax to the other antenna, and the power divider splits the power up evenly between the 2 antennas. There's also a power divider on the 4 antennas up here, which you can't very well see in the background here. And then there's a power divider between the two, or the pair of 2-meter antennas somewhere. Trust me. And then there's a bialan up here at the top to decouple the 6-meter antenna from the coax. Otherwise, your coax picks up a vertical antenna and your signal, and your Yagi picks up a horizontal signal. So you need the bialan to decouple the antenna from the coax so you don't actually pick up a vertically polarized antenna. Yes, this thing telescopes down when you travel. Otherwise, you're in big trouble. Because 12 feet is about there. So everything above 12 feet would be clipped off by trees and bridges. And then if you go in to get gas at the gas station, you'd be in trouble.
There's a couple questions I just got to ask. How long does it take you to put that thing together?
Too long. Well, if you got
There's
things
one thing
ready
you
to
can say
roll,
about
yeah, it takes about a half a day to assemble it and a half a day to disassemble it.
Jim has a lot of patience. We'll just put it to that way, because we've seen him also put towers up, and he just takes his time.
The
But
term
to
Rube
crank the
Goldberg
whole,
comes to mind.
if you arrive at a site and to crank the whole thing up takes about 15 minutes.
Okay. There's another question, a technical question that open to anybody. Something I've always wondered about is when you stack antennas, how does each antenna affect the one adjacent to it as far as radiation pattern?
If it's the same frequency, you have to space them based on their capture area. If they're different frequencies, you have to make sure they're not multiples. Otherwise, there's not all that much interference. You check the SWR as you move them closer together.
You can also get in trouble with multiple wire antennas. Say you have a wire antenna for 160 meters, a wire antenna for 80 meters, and a third one for 40 meters. They should go at right angles to each other, because if they're too close to each other, stacked one above the other, it'll affect the antenna. It'll affect the standing wave ratio greatly. Again, I learned by doing it the wrong way.
Here's another technical question. For some of the events I've done, I've had to have multiple Yagis up a 30-foot mast. And the question I have is, when you're operating those Yagis in the vertical polarization, do you need to get them away from a metal mast or not?
You betcha. And also, not only mast, but the coax is a metal object too. So
right.
If you have a vertically polarized Yagi, you have to use insulated material to suspend it mechanically, and you have to take the coax either off the back of the antenna or right angles for at least a half wavelength.
That's interesting. Now, it did work for me. I was able to, my problem was I had an event where the nearest repeaters I had to get into for the event were 40 miles away, 70-centimeter repeaters, and there were two of them in opposite directions. And using a Yagi, I was able to get into both of those. But the vertically polarized Yagi was only a few inches away from the metal mast.
I have to run, guys. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you, I guess, in 2 weeks for the Saturday morning coffee.
Antennas
See you,
are
Tom.
an important
See you, Jan.
topic, and we just barely scratched the surface on antennas. It can be a topic for every presentation, taking each individual antenna all the way from HF all the way up to UHF, VHF, and above. They're all separate, but this is just an overall view of the different ones. But basically, you can go in, because back a few weeks ago, we had topic of HF antenna period. I think Wayne did that presentation on the HF antennas. But it's an interesting topic, and you can be as technical as you want or try to be as generic, but then you lose some of the getting into the down nitty gritty.
Yeah. And there are other things we didn't talk about, like the height above the ground for wire antennas. I like a long wire antenna that's fairly low to the ground for NBIS. It works well.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because a couple of years ago, I have my center of my antenna up at about 40 feet.
Yeah.
And basically, with a rotten rope that I should have used the proper rope and I didn't. As I was going to change it out, the rope snapped and I watched the antenna go up and through, or I should say the rope go through the pulley and down the ground, and I lost my 80-meter antenna. Well, I utilize 75, 80 meters 5 days a week, every morning. Okay, how am I going to keep in contact with that group that I talked to? Well, I'm out here on a farm, and I happen to have approximately 3/4 of a mile of wire that I use that's called for keeping the horses in. Electric wire.
Yeah.
As insulation, insulators all the way around. So what I did, I broke that 3 feet off the ground. I ended up taking one side against ground and then fed it the other side. And here I am utilizing that. It worked. I'm able to talk between here and the Twin Cities, Stillwater. My signal was down from 20 over 9 normally, or 10 over 9, down to probably about an S7, but an antenna 3 foot off the ground, that 3/4 mile length of wire, it worked, and very quiet. So anything can work. And take a look, TAF, your experiment a couple of years ago at Field Day. I mean, sticking out a ladder and then taking just a long wire antenna and hooking it up, and it's only what? How far above the ground?
The ladder would have been no more than 8 feet off the ground. Then we threw the other end because we just did an end fed and single wire end fed, and we were talking to California.
Yeah.
So I mean, you can get by with very minimal, or to be better, then then you have to really go through the technical effort of cutting them to what you want or something else. And I've not used a long wire antenna like that for years. So but there you go. A long wire end-fed antenna and get it up in the air. Higher the better is what they say. Well, I don't climb, so it's what if something will shoot up over a tree or up whatever else, that's as high as it gets. And with the tower, I have the lanterns out, so then I can run it up at least 40 feet for the center, and then run it out to either end. Also, another one to experiment with is a inverted L antenna. I've had one work perfect, and all the others that I've tried have been miserable. Why? I don't know.
I used one for many years in a small yard in California. So I had a 160-meter folded dipole, but I had to do it in an L. It still worked. It was the only 2 sides of my yard that didn't have power lines near them. So.
And the thing is, with antennas, hey, try them. They may work, they may not, but you might be surprised. It's fun.
Right now, I've in the process of building a 49-to-1 onion to or union, however you want to call it, but for an end-fed half wave that will be a multi-band, because I have plans when it starts warming up to actually do a little POTA. And for those that don't know what POTA is, it's Parks on the Air, and we have some active parks in Minnesota.
Well, I can remember going over to Dave Bartlow's way back when he first joined the club, and we went through his antennas, and he had something up, and we ended up going down into a shack just to give it a try, because he hadn't utilized, I don't think, at that time. And we worked a station, maybe in California or wherever else, and it worked good. And you had a lot of stuff out there in that shed of yours that to make all kinds of antennas. So you just can do almost anything with just junk you have on hand. My first antenna, I was, I think, probably 14 or 16. Well, first when I was a ham operator, I was about 16 years old. I ended up going to the local telephone company here in Osakis. I said, I'd like to get some wire if you have anything you've taken down. Well, sure. Well, it was some pretty heavy duty wire, but that was my first dipole antenna. It didn't stay up in the tree very well. It kept on coming down because of the weight and having problems, but it was my first dipole antenna. It worked. And it did not have a 1-to-1 balance in the center. It just had the coax split off as a Y, and the ground going to one side, the center going to the other side, and wired in, and it worked fine. So I'm going with, like I say, 1-to-1 balun for that type of antenna. Utilize it if you can. If you haven't gotten your own, you don't have to use it. Because back that one that I showed, which was a 10-meter antenna that I built, that one had a high gain, and we're talking something that was probably 40, 50-year-old center, for the center insulator, and I was using RG58U, which is small and very lossy, but it turned out that it had no 1-to-1 balun or anything and worked fine.
Now, there's also the poor man's 1-to-1 balun. I don't know if you've ever used it, or actually it's an unun, and that's where you just wrap RG48 around a piece of PVC pipe.
That works.
Nicely. Means you don't have
I've
current
done air
flowing.
coils that way to
That's what I do with air
stop
coils.
RF interference. So
Yep. No, that works well.
It
I've
keeps
done
the
that
current
also.
off the outside of the coax.
Yes. But it's a wonderful topic. And and basically anyone with feed lines, it's a wonderful topic. And ladder line versus coax versus your home brew type, stuff. We had a club member that built his own spreaders and had them, I think, 3 to 6 inches apart, and then had the open line wire going all the way up from the antenna down. And that was a marvelous antenna, feed line, very low loss. But it's, there's so many different things you can end up doing. And amateur radio is for experimentation. And sometimes the antennas work, sometimes they don't. No big deal. Then you get off with something else.
and get
Right,
an
Norm?
antenna analyzer to save your equipment
Yes.
before you hook it up to it. They're not cheap, but they neither is replacing a radio finals if you accidentally blow those out.
Well, I have to admit it. I never owned an analyzer up until 5 years ago. And I've been a ham for over 50 years.
Yeah, but that's the tubes. They were pretty hefty. Solid state
I like that.
electronics doesn't take it very well.
I wiped out a few 6146s, 807s, and some others in my lifetime by making mistakes.
Yeah. Well, and I found that the analyzers are absolutely essential for some of the field antennas, like, for instance, the buddy poles. You can't put up a buddy pole without an analyzer to figure out what the.
You are so correct.
Yeah. Well, also, a few years ago, someone from our club brought some pretty crummy coax.
We won't name any names there, Wayne.
Also, a balun that one end wasn't soldered real good and it come loose. Well, it turned out that antenna analyzer, once one of our other members figured out how to use it from the manual that he had along, which is essential, we were able to pinpoint every single place in that system was bad. And that was like every foot. And then Dave Bartlow ended up cutting it up and took a look at it. And he says, "Oh my, that's some pretty green stuff."
Yeah, I think it went all the way down, if I remember right. It was the whole entire thing.
It did. And then doing a field repair on that balun didn't work either.
No, and it never does. I made field repairs and we tried to solder in the field with the wind blowing and trying to keep enough heat on it.
But again, that's a fun part of ham radio. And that's a fun part, what I miss for not being able to get together for field days.
Which comes back to is yeah, this year it's going to be the same rules, but they've added 2 different classes and stuff like that. But you know what? We could still be looking at setting up and doing something.
I guess we'll take a look and see how it goes once we get closer and then make the decision what we want to end up doing. Wayne,
Sounds good.
it's a topic that we follow up with sooner or later.
Yep.
I guess maybe that'd be considered new business.
Yeah. I'm going to have to think about doing it in our county EOC, since now I work 8 hours a day in the room next to the EOC doing dispatch work.
Which county?
Stevens.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm now.
Oh, then you know Donna Griner.
Yeah, I do.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep. She's she's my counterpart down in Stevens County.
I see. Yeah.
If we end up Douglas County, we have a beautiful room that was provided for us right next to the EOC with a nice big window looking at the EOC, where we have all of our county ham radio equipment in for operation.
That sounds
And then
nice.
we have a secondary location, which we might lose, that's called the watershed, where they have all their water toys. And there we have antennas, the HF antennas, because on top of the cop shop, it turns out that at the courthouse and that, it is just atrocious for noise, or actually the old school, atrocious for noise, and it's probably 10 over on all the HF bands. So we can't use HF at all.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that was true of Stevens County. We've got so many cameras and whatnot around that building now that there's probably a lot of RF noise from those. We have to monitor all the cameras from the dispatch position.
Oh, yes. But we end up, we can utilize HF, but basically we have it set up. We can do the link over to the other location where we have good antennas and then portable equipment. We don't dare leave it there because it's utilized for sentence to serve, that office area. So we don't dare leave any of the equipment there. We have it in the next to the EOC, and then we can pick it up and bring it over and just toss it up real easy. The antennas are up all the time, but not the equipment there. Anyways, this has been a good session.
Yeah.
A lot of nice questions, good topic.
Thanks, Wayne, for putting up on the presentation.
You're welcome. It's been going on, this was ready last over a year ago.
Yep.
Anyways, we'll see you guys.
Yep.
See you
All right.
there and then at the next meeting.
Okay,
73.
73s, everybody. I'm going.
Eric, WT, I'll give you a call on my phone then. Make sure you get the right telephone number.